Get ready for an unfiltered and uncensored listening experience.
Gender reveal.
Ginawa.
Kasi sa punto, ako yung tipo ng tao na pag dumating ako sa puntong sagot na sagot na talaga.
Benta niya 90 million. Where can you find that?
Don. God
Where can you
damn.
find that?
Hello, I'm back. And we're live. What up, Jay?
Hey,
Eh,
Nick. Nice to
Thank,
have you here, dude.
thank you so much muna talaga for coming to the podcast. It's been a long and coming. Nung nag-umpisa ako ng podcast or rebranding ng podcast, ikaw talaga yung unang gusto kong makausap. Kasi uh, para lang in a context, Jairus and I met around 2018, 2017, around that time frame. So, we met at a group page sa Facebook called Startup PH. So, I was selling my grandmother's trucking company that time. Then, message ako ni Jai. Then, we met at BGC. Then, we started to click. So, with that, how did you start on building iFarm? Like, what's your experience before building iFarm?
Okay. So, well, first of all, Nick, thanks for having me here. Congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you.
I'm sure it was a journey to get you decided
Yep.
to really pursue this. Uh, well, if ever we're gonna go straight to the point, sige, let's get at it, no? So
Mm,
we started the company iFarms Inc. 2015. It's been a very, very long journey for me. And it's been a series of shifts and pivots. Alam mo naman, especially with the changing times, you also have to adjust to the community. You also have to adjust to many things, no? But today we are situated here in Cagayan de Oro, and we are, I would say, back to basic.
mm,
Food will always go back to basic, which is really building the community, and also understanding saan papunta ang market. Um, but beyond the technical things of business, I think we are really in a pivotal moment, particularly on the national food security uh, concerns. I think we're all experiencing, I mean, the world is experiencing this recession right now, particularly with multiple things going up, shift of supply chains globally. Um, we're we're seeing definitely a still very steep uh, prices on the commodities, right? And
mm-hmm.
these all affect everyone's daily lives, you know. I'm sure you've noticed that your 1,000 pesos is pretty much like 100 pesos na lang of before,
Yep.
right? You can't really buy anything anymore with it, right? So these are signs that, uh, challenging times are are inside the door. So that's why I said back to basic earlier, Nick, kasi I really think that localizing food production further and strengthening the food systems again further. But me, I realize it's gonna be coming from the source mismo. I situated myself back here in Cagayan de Oro last year and began I would say, reestablishing um, relationships with the community of where I grew up and seeing who are the existing players in the agricultural scene, asking questions: where do we start? What do we begin with? And of course, this time with a better network from the last few years of experience to bringing them here. So maybe we can talk about those things later. But right now, yeah, it's more of really a journey, a year's journey now here in relocating in Mindanao again.
First, I want to thank you kasi hindi mo binili yung company ng lola ko. Kasi, yeah. Because here's the story. So, we met, then we talked about a month or 2 months or two, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then, you decided na you don't want to purchase it. Okay, so after
Mm.
that, around 2021, um, my college friends and I started a logistic company, Asian
Oh,
Logistics.
nice.
Yeah.
Oo.
So when we first experienced that, uh, yung mga sinasabi mo earlier sa akin, yung mga hirap, yung mga kulit ng drivers and that sort of thing, you're the first one who I thought of. So, minessage kita, sabi ko, Jai, first of all, thank you so much for the advice. Thank you so much
Tama.
for not purchasing it. Kasi, kung,
So tinuloy mo, tinuloy mo.
yeah. So,
Up to now,
yung, yung tracking,
yung tracking, oo.
ah, yung sa logistics, medyo part-time na dahil nag-pursue na ako sa media. That's why, I'm thankful hindi mo binili in the first place kasi,
Well,
you,
no, it wasn't really me, but you were saying that maybe we can come up with a group that can take over. Kasi sayang eh. I remember that
mm,
sayang yung business eh. It was just that maybe kulang ka lang ng team members. I did have a few ideas in mind at that time, but it wasn't priority. Oo. So sabi ko, ano, tsagain mo na lang.
so,
So that was fine. Glad
yeah,
glad it turned out well for you.
it really turned out eh, perfectly kasi we're not hindi naman tayo naging business partners pero I'm so glad na naging friends tayo, naging in contact pa rin. So nung na-experience ko yun sa HGN, sabi ko, ito yung sinasabi ni Jairus, message ko si Jairus, said, I want to thank you so much for the advice for for not
So ano
purchasing the trucking.
ano mga experience mo at that time?
So yung mga pumabalik na yung sinasabi mo na may mga times na ikaw na yung nagda-drive sa truck kasi may mga pasaway
Mm.
na driver na ayaw sa ganitong route, ayaw sa ganitong ruta, ayaw sa mga ganitong kliyente. We did that. Like literally nung sinabi mong nakapag-drive ako ng truck dahil yung isang driver makulit ayaw doon sa ganito. Nakapag-drive ako ng truck.
Yep. Yep.
So,
You have to. If you have to do it, you have to do it, Nick.
yeah. So, doon na papasok yung knit and grind na sinasabi mo na sa mga dirty jobs nung ayaw mo, pag isip-isipan mo yung industry papasokan mo kasi gagawin mo talaga yon. So, I really want to
Yeah.
thank you for that. Um, during that time, anong phase ng iFarm nun na you were thinking or you were based here in Manila?
Okay. Yeah, when we met Nick, that was the very, very early stages of the company. Um, we were also trying to figure out, okay, what part of the industry will we focus on? And we originally, the idea was to have a digital platform, which was really the narrative that was happening and really going around at the time. And ako naman, I'm always in the principle of using what you have and starting where you're with what you understand. So, yun yung inuna ko kasi yun yung alam ko eh. And then as we went along, we were able to build a brand called Uma. And then it was more of a supply chain logistics system, but with a very specific business model for fresh produce. Now, obviously, that's a very, very tricky and I would say very logistics heavy information heavy, logistics heavy, timing heavy industry. But it really refined us, Nick, on understanding, okay, this is the business that we're getting into. How do we move forward? And then, of course, the pandemic hit,
Mm-hmm.
and the shift of everything started. So now people are getting back on their feet again, which is great to see. More businesses are opening, but then again, iba na yung players.
Yep.
Iba na yung players, iba na yung nagpapatakbo, iba na yung mga concepts, iba na yung when you say supply chain relationships yan, Nick, eh. So I decided na, aside from personal reasons of, okay, wanting to live in a more naturey space, or not not in the Manila type of rush, I situated myself and the office here back in Cagayan de Oro. And true enough, we were able to reestablish takes a while, reestablish a community here in Bukidnon. And we're slowly getting into, I would say, more precision agriculture types of growing. In fact, we were able to have a community training last week with a very specific vegetable company, seed vegetable company, from the Netherlands. And people are more open to it now because people are looking for more predictability, reliability of seeds, and all of these things. So I think my value right now, Nick, is really situating myself and being of service, hopefully, here dito sa closer to the Mindanao communities, no? But very specific na ako, Nick. I only work with a few people, um, because you have to also preserve your sanity.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, Nick, it's been journey also. I also dabbled into other industries, particularly on micro energy systems, and we're also hopefully um, closing in on a aviation company for agriculture also.
So how does it
So
work? Yung sa
basic,
aviation.
so basically, it's so there's this thing about agricultural spraying using drones.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're gonna run it like an aviation company, right? So the methodologies of aviation, we were hoping to put in the discipline. Kasi syempre, flying, ano yan eh, flying assets yan eh. So our pilots will have hopefully the discipline of the real airline discipline, no? So anyway, we're putting that together because that's also a shift in the industry dyan papunta. Nakakatuwa sa Mindanao, Nick. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening here. Um, in the bamboo industry, it's also a thriving industry here. People are shifting because there's a shortage globally for hardwood, right? So
Mm-hmm.
construction material will be of a scarce thing already. So the advent of giant bamboo is I would say a very fresh perspective and alternative to people here, no? So yeah, those are all happening at the same time. So
So
community development, all of these things happening.
so in iFarm, paano yung funding process nun? Because I think kung kung titignan mo, I think it's very expensive to run. So paano yung early funding process ng iFarm nun?
Yeah, that's always the tricky part when it's with a startup, Nick. I mean, especially with startups, very risky, no? And I myself have personal ongoing experiences on that one. However, the funding an idea is really a high risk thing because there's so many factors of it being realized. So it really depends on I would say, the entrepreneur, no, on how to navigate that. So there are a couple of industries now, especially now, agriculture and agriculture technology is the highest priority now dito sa Philippines.
Yep.
So I've been getting calls from groups and people wanting to infuse more, not just capital, but also I would say involvement uh, in in the industry through services and of course through supply chain activities, no. So but kami dito sa Bukidnon, we are more focused, Nick, on the growing side. So we've partnered with communities who have the professional discipline of farming, and we're trying to infuse, I would say, the technological know-how to make their productivity better and all of that. Because right now it's so much easier to sell produce, because of the internet, and of course people are more knowledgeable on how to use it. So again, the funding process is very tricky, but it's definitely a high priority now. So it's much easier to get, I would say, groups, or I would say um, interests to projects, no? But very project specific tayo ngayon, right? So yeah, that's the process there for me.
When you decided to move from basing here in Manila to Cagayan de Oro, how was it sa mga employees and co-founders mo? Kasi I really believe na sobrang hirap nun para sa kanila na mag-move from Manila to Cagayan eh.
Well, the what's interesting with our group kasi we were a very small group to begin with. And of course, it was a long process to talk to the company board na, hey, look, if we want to do this, I mean, nasa ng farm sa Manila, puro consumers lang lahat
Yep.
dyan, right? And um, I realized na I would rather put my expertise on the ground and on the field, right? So sabi ko na if we really want to build the culture of what we're trying to do, we have to situate ourselves in the countryside. And for me, my comfort zone was Cagayan de Oro and Bukidnon. Kasi nandyan yung network ko eh. And then slowly, it started to grow to different parts of Mindanao, the past couple of years since I was here. So uh, it wasn't a hard transition, but we had to, because we came from the pandemic, we were able to already set up a virtual office, which was, using all of these digital platforms. And then, of course, um, recalibration of team members, no? So right now, I must admit, we are in a very, I would say, startup stage again, no? But this time, we're approaching it in a bit more wiser approach, in developing our programs. So we're leveraging now with communities, cooperatives, and what they have. And very soon, hopefully, Nick, there will be an involvement also with government, right? So that's the exciting part also.
I'm glad na nag-move ka from Manila to Cagayan de Oro kasi um yung mother ko galing sa Cagayan de Oro, galing siya sa
Mm,
Puntod. Then
mm,
yung dad ko galing sa Jimenez, so
mm-hmm,
Misamis Occidental. And it's been around 5 years na ata. Basta teenagers pa lang ako, pinopromote ko na yung Mindanao. Kasi I really believe, lalo na sa agriculture side, sobrang ganda. Lalo na sa Bukidnon. Kasi nakakapag-visit kami dyan eh. Ng family ko tuwing ah, umuwi kami. Can you tell us the ecosystem ecosystem there dyan sa Mindanao, kung bakit sobrang thriving niya ngayon, especially sa agriculture and lahat ng mga agri startups nandiyan na eh.
Interesting. Well, glad you said that, Nick, no? It's always been here kasi the topography is very unique. Hindi siya masyadong binabagyo, especially Bukidnon. Definitely there are challenges. I mean, it's always been the industry here. There are challenges on operating, especially now with increased, I would say, input prices and all of these things. But I think more than anything, it's the culture and the people, right? I noticed here, Nick, parang mas may camaraderie on how to work together. Well, maybe particularly on in my community, no, we we find a way on how to really help each other. Um, Try to increase value to the community. Of course, there will be challenges, especially yung mga limitations on tools or infrastructure or timing to market. That's why right now we are, how do you say this, reorganizing ourselves into, I would say, making it more professional, instead of more fragmented, right? Kasi right now, fragmented, kanya-kanyang farming, tapos kanya-kanyang benta. So there's really no coordination or kulang sa coordination, no? I wouldn't say no coordination, but let me correct myself, no? But I think I think generally it's because people here have time, right? People here have, I would say, enough time to really develop themselves, especially their businesses in agri. Um, right now, people are more open to I would say innovation, right? People are adapting. The local market, Nick, is also increasing, right? The local market is also, I would say, thriving. You know why? Because nagbukasan kasi ng mga bagong roads here, so more restaurants are coming out,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So there's more access to I would say the hinterlands or places with nice views. So with that comes tourism, and with tourism comes higher food consumption, right? So dito pa lang ano, I think there's gonna be a stronger network to distribute food. Um, and people here, it's getting closer from their farms to their own kitchens, no, particularly with mga restaurant tours. But what's challenging now, Nick, is the food hungry cities, which is the Metro Cebu or Metro Bohol. Not Metro, but Bohol as a province. Um, so the growing communities also they're looking for food. So anyway, I really think it's a work in progress, but I felt that this was the place for me to really set up also.
I'm so happy din kasi yung mismong government diyan, sila na mismo gumagawa ng project, gumawa nung mga diversion road. Kasi kwento ng mga relatives ko diyan, kapag galing sila sa Buanga, nakakapunta sila sa Cagayan kaagad ah, mga 3 to 2 hours na. Then
Mm,
pag from Cagayan to Jimenez, that's around 1 hour and a half na yung biyahe instead
mm,
of 2 and a half. So sobrang
mm.
laki talaga nun. Yung sa Cagayan, are they involved on the agriculture side, or paano yung process nyo or yung communication nyo between the local government?
Well, magkakilala naman lahat, Nick, no? People are aware of each other. People are aware of each other's programs. So I think it's more of like really just aligning the programs and the intention and the timing, no? Right now lang, yung mga kilala natin who have excelled here locally, mga seniors natin sa industry are already getting into the higher positions, especially now that the Department of Agriculture Secretary is the president himself. So, uh, I think that's an advantage now only because um, food security is really the top priority, no? So, yeah, so let's see where that goes in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of years. We're only on our first year. So, I think it's gonna be exciting.
Before we go outside iFarm, na-notice ko may mga innovation tools kayo na pinapakita sa Instagram page nyo. Follow iFarm on Instagram. Um, Can you talk about those products and how can it help our farmers there?
Okay, so sige, let's go back to basic, Nick. No? Like I said
Mm-mm.
earlier in my statement, na we're going back to basic, which is water and seeds, right? Originally, the original strategy was really to, oh, tara, let's put up an app, let's put all of these platforms, parang rah, rah, rah. And then when you go to the community, shucks, walang internet, walang tubig, the basic stuff, right? So na-realize ko nga, so we started to think, okay, what do we have that, or what can we do to be able to build relationship on the ground, um, and at the same time provide value to the community. So we started to dabble into water systems, and then we started to strengthen our partnership with the seed suppliers, right? And that's why, Nick, I'm proud to say that iFarms Inc. is a partner of that seed company in growing the community who uses their seeds. Because they're the number four seed, I would say, horticulturists or breeders in the world. So obviously, if you have access to better seeds or good seeds, you have a higher chance of having better yield. And of course, with that also comes better nutrition to the community and all of those other benefits, no? So yes, we started to dabble on innovation tools, particularly on solar water pumps. And then I personally got involved with another company in
JJ,
creating.
before we go to that, can
Mm,
we briefly explain kung ano yung solar water pump? Because
sure.
I find it very interesting, lalo na pag sa mga audience na nakikinig, kung masasearch ko sa Instagram, ang ganda niya and sobrang dali niyang gamitin and sobrang accessible niya for the users, for the
Yeah,
farmers.
yeah. It's an easy to use product, no?
Mm-hmm.
So backstory for that, Nick. 2017, 2018, around the time we met, that company was already creating their prototypes, right? It's an Indian company, but UK invested.
Mm.
It's a UK invested Indian company, uh, and they were trying to solve, I would say, rural energy, access to water in the rural areas, ganun. So, in the early stages, I was able to get connected with them, but the product that they had wasn't optimal yet. So, long story short, many years later, when they had a better product, they reached out and say, "Hey, Jai, would you like to get involved?" It's like, yes, because this is something that is within the scope of the company. And at the same time, that was the time, Nick, na I was going around the different countrysides.
Mm-hmm.
Na kailangan talaga. So sabi ko, very timely. But of course, what more better solution than having unlimited energy from the sun, right? And at the same time, it's portable, it's easy to use, and it gets the job done on a very small scale. So I realized also, Nick, that these types of solutions became social pacifiers. Kasi syempre, when you go to the community, lalo na sa malalayang lugar, ano sinasabi nila? Oh, we wanna have, hinahintay namin yung gobyerno. We're waiting for this, we're waiting for that. And it takes years, if you're lucky,
Yeah.
in your community, right? If if your LGU has the right networks and the right plans to get these developments in place. So that takes a while. So dun muna tayo sa basic, tubig at saka energy, right? So that's the start of that endeavor, Nick, only because we realize kailangan na kailangan siya, right? We also realize that we have to get things moving forward because of what's the mandate now, which is locally produce your own food, right? So again, with food, you need water, right? So ganun lang siya ka-basic, Nick. But it's a great product, it's a fun product. And then kami na rin nag-design ng micro energy storage battery niya dito sa Cagayan. So,
Ano siya na-embrace ng mga farmers diyan?
so we started with a few units only, and then of course, we were very strategic in implementing it to people who are interested muna. We got a few farmers. Actually, mga bumibili nga Nick, mostly hindi nga galing CDO eh. Mostly galing pa sa mga island groups eh.
Oh, wow.
Bohol, Palawan,
Oh, wow.
malalayong lugar. So na-notice namin, it's like, oh, okay to ah. And then of course the inquiry was high. Um, then again, uh, when we started to showcase it to NGOs, to LGUs, yung mga Department of Agriculture dito, and they liked it. But the next challenge, of course, again, is how to get it paid for, right? Because they have to recalibrate their budgets and all of these
Mhm.
things. So again, the first few months that we started this, we only started this product mid last year, and interest is high. So where people have put it in their community programs now. So hopefully those will mature and they will start to get more units. No, but again, it's a great product because it's solving a social problem. No?
Mm. Then yung iFarms, lalo na sa food security natin ngayon, how does iFarm contribute to that problem?
Okay, that's a very, very lupit na mga questions mo, Nick. We're not here to solve everything, Nick.
Mhm.
But we're definitely trying to provide solutions in the framework of how things are done, right? Um, to be able to, you can't really affect change in this industry unless you are in it, right? But at the same time, there's so many factors involved that it has to be I would say, cross agency. So you have to have good relationship with the government. You have to have good relationship with the community, with the business community, and how do you balance all of that together? No. So how are we impacting? Wala, it's just within our sphere of influence, Nick. I realize na it's who you work with on a daily basis that's most important, right? As much as you want to, let's just say, Nick, I've tamed down,
Oh,
right?
wow.
I've tamed down in terms of like the aggression or more focus on what needs to be done on a daily basis. We're trying to fine tune better business models and really work with the people and finding a win-win situation, no? Kasi syempre, ang hirap with agriculture ni kasi perishable yan eh,
Yep.
right? So right now, the methodology of a sold before harvest idea is starting to take place na, right? We're fortunate now because we have more food processors here who have relocated.
Oh,
Imagine, Nick,
wow.
may mga nag-relocate na from Manila, sourcing out here na para closer to the market, ay closer to the source ang kanilang mga processing. For example, peppers, right? Do you realize yung mga sweet and sour sauces ninyo, the ingredients of that come from here.
Oh, wow.
And it's a very, very big market, no? So at least yan, malapit na dito na siya, right? So we're hoping to really get more involvement in that. And we found the seeds na, that's why very happy tayo with the seed supplies for that one. Again, Nick, as much as possible, it's really just creating that ecosystem. Very important yan. Ecosystem still is with relationships pa rin.
Yep.
'Di ba? How
Mhm.
do you structure understanding people's role in the community, um, trying to infuse programs that will help people enhance their productivity, enhance their operations, access to capital, access to different technologies, access to knowledge, Nick, very important, right? So cross-discipline talaga yung agri, Nick, no? Yeah, I can jump from topic to topic, but it's really a cross-discipline thing.
For for the audience lang to know, what do you mean na tamed ka?
I
Kasi
would
we
say,
both
yeah,
know how aggressive we are in terms of when we have an idea, we want to do it fast and quick. So, for the audience lang to know how tamed it, how tame it is.
I would say follow through and consistency, right? Kasi I'm in my 30s now, but in my 20s talagang all out eh. Talagang go here, go there. Lalo na sa Manila, puro meeting. Grabe. Walang katapusang meeting. Tapos pagdating sa follow-up, may lang hirap. Di ba? Then when I moved here, Nick, it was more tamed only because there was more focus. It was more task-oriented, getting
Okay.
one thing at a time done, and then, having a balanced life also, right? Getting better sleep, eating good food, I'll tell you this, Nick, when I moved here, side kwento, during the pandemic, what matters most, Nick, in life? I realized it's good sleep, good food, fresh air, right? Good community, and a good sense of purpose, right?
Exactly.
So parang everything else is becoming secondary, right? So parang that's because I just had that light bulb moment na parang, oh nga, no? Parang why are we rushing? But at the same time, you have to be consistent and persevering towards the purpose that you want to build, right? So that's been my motive here in Mindanao, and the results are actually more evident, particularly with people adapting to the business model that we're hoping to impose, um, and of course adapt rather instead of impose, adapt. And we're really trying to do our best to get, I would say, um, development agencies involved in these community development programs. Right now, Nick, we're very focused on providing water systems, not just to our pumps, but bigger water systems in the rural areas. Kasi if you're able to manage water, kasi Nick, you're able to you're able to produce better food.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah, kasi water management is food management, 'di ba? So that's why right now, that's the direction of what we're taking.
What does the dialogue between iFarm and the local governments there? Kasi kakakita ko lang no sa Instagram stories mata yung nagkaroon kayo ng meeting between the local government of Cagayan de Oro. So, yung mga
Yeah,
other LGUs, paano yung dialogue nyo?
the dialogue is always about collaboration. The dialogue will always be about, okay, what's the agenda, what's the program, and how do we work with agility, right? That's the beauty about a company, Nick, where and if it has the discipline of a startup also, the agility is there. The problem with the challenges with LGU or government, especially with when it comes to approving programs, is it goes through a whole long process, right? So basically, it takes a while. So I think the reason why there has been a lot of collaboration is really how to bring in stakeholders to work together towards the same agenda and purpose in their own respective manners, right? So it's really that, and of course, seeing how programs can be aligned also, right? So in the world of agriculture, Nick, it's forever just gathering people and aligning schedules, aligning um, uh, agendas, what's the direction for this year. At saka you're not kasi talking about immediate, Nick, eh. Takes a while to grow anything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So all of these things. But there's always an activity happening.
I just wanna ask, kapag may mga bagyo, ano yung mga contingency plan? Lalo na in terms sa pag-handle ng agriculture business. Kasi I imagine, syempre, yung Pilipinas, laking tinadaanan ng bagyo yan. Especially, east side, kung tama ako, east side ng Mindanao, even Leyte, then Metro Manila. So,
Yeah.
kapag nagkakaroon ng ganitong bagyo or nasisira yung mga tanim natin tuwing bagyo, what's the contingency plan?
Well, that's the reason why they're really increasing production here in Mindanao. Do you know, Nick, that during the pandemic, one of the highest cargo outputs in the country was Cagayan de Oro?
Oh, wow.
It was because of food, right? So you're correct. Every year na lang, ilang bagyo ang dumadating sa Philippine Area of Responsibility, no? Or we call it PAR. Usually it comes from the east and minsan habagat or on the other side also, no? Mindanao is quite unique. It doesn't really get hit by these things,
Oh, wow.
right? Um, we still have very fertile land here. And lalo na ngayon, very fresh yung mga roads. So there's more, we call it farm to market road that's opening up. And with the advent of younger farmers getting into the game, there's more, I would say, optimism and open-mindedness in getting into the greenhouse production. Again, precision agriculture, um, better, selling platforms and all of these things. No, so that's what we're doing right now. With regards to responding to the shortage of food when there's actually um, mga bagyo. Alam mo ba, Nick, it's not about having shortage of food. It's about logistics.
Oh, wow.
Mm. Because food will always be there. Yes, nababagyuhan or nasisiraan. And usually, ang rini-report lang sa news is always palay,
Mhm.
right? But there's so much more agricultural products, right? If you move it fresh, Nick, yan, it's gonna get more expensive in the next couple of weeks. And you see that, you know, nakikita natin in the onion issue, right? Um, there's a lot of there's a lot of things that go into my mind right now, but point being is we have to up our game in the post-harvest facilities. We call it the post-harvest service centers, right? Where this is where a place, imagine it's a place where community farms can come and perhaps do their post-harvest quality checks, meaning dyan magsa-sizing, sorting, washing, and then packing. And it provides, we want to be able to have a place where it provides the needed services for access to financing, again, logistics, packaging, and all of these things, no? So I feel that there has to be an intervention on the development side. Um, Only because alam natin every third quarter of the year nag-iiba ang daloy ng panahon.
Yup.
So tatakbo yan dito, right? So it's always an exchange, no, from northern side to southern side. Um, but again, Nick, hindi lang Manila ang market. You're already talking about the regional other regions stepping up, and ang laki ng population
Mhm.
na hindi pa rin nasa-serve, no? So there's a big market to feed, right? And again, padami ng tao sa Pilipinas, Nick. So
Yeah.
let's not think about export anymore. Dito pa lang pwede na.
Mm. Uh, you travel a lot. Halos iniikot mo na yung buong province sa Pilipinas. Can you share us why is it important to explore those places para makatulong siya magkaroon ng contribution sa dito sa buong Pilipinas?
Good insight there. Ang ganda ng Pilipinas, Nick, no? What we need in the countryside are more entrepreneurial minds. People who are willing to develop things and try out ideas and start businesses there. Because if we just rely on the employment status, it's gonna be challenging, no? But with the
Mhm.
advent of the internet now, Nick, anything is possible. Eh.
Yep.
You can really promote yourself. You can really develop anything now And with the imagine satellite internet, it's already there.
Yep.
You know, anywhere you are in the Philippines, hopefully you get internet na, so you can market stuff, right? The innovations that our energy company is making, you can already be off grid and create higher value products. That's another topic to itself, no? It's quite exciting. And get this, people are more open to rural living, the closer to nature, right? Pero syempre, even though if you live in the rural area, your taste buds or your taste palette or your preference in your food intake is already in the supermarket level, right? So get that certain mix, 'di ba? Parang okay, I'll go to the city maybe sa weekend, I'll do my grocery and then live in the countryside and have, basta may internet lang, I can do my stuff, I can do my meetings, and then live in a better, I would say a more simple life, right? Um, it's very possible now, Nick. Very, very possible now. And we're starting to see that more and more these days.
Mm-hmm.
So people start to enterprise after.
You mentioned nagkaroon tayo ng influx of prices ng
Mm-hmm.
sibuyas.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share us for your for your own opinion or for your own
Mm.
knowledge kung bakit nagkaroon ng ganong influx of prices? What
Mm.
does the people don't quite understand why and why they started to blame syempre mga higher officials natin.
Phew, that's a complex issue to start with. Um, it's economics. Okay. The simple answer for that, Nick, it's economics, supply, demand, right? Every meal, people use onions, right? These are the most basic things. However, local producers still need post-harvest facilities for this, right? When you say post-harvest, Nick, this is what translates what's on the ground. Siyempre, pag hinarvest mo yan, basa yan, and you have to go through a process until it's dry and ready to market. That process happens in the post-harvest facility. That's what needs to be developed more in the countryside, particularly in the onion producing regions, right? But with development also needs power, also needs, when I say power, electricity, electricity, access to market, timing. So the elements of business have to be in place. Now, the market is also very choosy now. Gusto nila pantay-pantay, maganda, you know, uh, syempre, mura or reasonably priced, right? So the convenience of importing is really very tempting. It's there, right? However, you know, it's a very complex issue depending on whose perspective you're looking at it from. Kaninong vantage point, right? Siyempre, people start to blame the government. That's the usual reaction of society. Blame the government. Yes, they play a big role, but at the same time, it's a complex issue also of panahon, right? Did the farms also have great yield for the season, right? If they did, was it properly processed, right? It's not about if there's a market or not, Nick. There's always a market. However, how do you access that, right? So on the onion side naman, Nick, I'm being very careful here because of course it's a very sensitive issue,
Yup.
right? It's a very, very sensitive issue. What drives prices up? Of course, everyone moves. And when everyone moves, alam mo yan, gasolina yan,
Yup.
right? So now, saan pupunta ang cost of fuel or logistics? Sa item, sa commodity, right? So obviously tataas yan and everyone who's trading that needs to make money. People need to make, people need to make a living for about it. No? So uh There's no one answer to it, Nick. There's no one answer to it, but it's definitely something that has to be addressed, and it's a whole of community approach, right? It's really a whole of community approach.
There's a question that di ko alam paano ko i-compose. But you've mentioned uh we are looking on a different perspective. As a startup sa agri world, does it let me try to put this in another way. Uh our head secretary of agriculture is our president right now. As a startup, how does it help when the head leader is managing the agri side? Kasi there's a lot of people sa agri nung time na yon before this administration na sinasabi masyado nang napabayaan ang agriculture ng Pilipinas. Kaya puro tayo importation, puro tayo nakafocus sa international product. So, how does it help when our head leader is the head of our agri department?
It really helps a lot, Nick. But there has to be balance. You know why? Because everyday people eat,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you tama ka, napabayaan siya over the years because what affects agriculture, again, it's access to water, it's development, it's knowledge, it's the people having the enough people having, you know, updated, I would say, methodologies of growing. Um, but it's really a balancing act because in agriculture, Nick, you have to, whatever you will do today will be felt by years from now.
Mm-hmm.
For example, a mango tree, right? You plant it today, kailan siya mamumunga? In X amount of years pa, right? Or kalamansi, magtanim ka. Coconut, there's a big movement in coconut now. Um, there's a big program on replanting better varieties now. When does that start to bear fruit? 2 to 3 years, right? So it's not immediately felt. That's why the reforms of countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, our neighbors, started decades ago, and they're
Oh
only
wow.
reaping
I didn't know
they're
that.
they're only reaping the benefits of it now,
Oh
right?
wow.
So really the development now, particularly with this administration, it will still be felt many years from now, right? Kasi ano, it's gonna take time, right? Productivity takes time. So I do understand the issue about importation. Um, I do understand the issues of productivity on the field, the issues on what the market's looking for, and all of these things. No, so it's a very tricky situation, but there has to be balance. Um, it's not just because the president is a secretary right now, but it's really a whole of community approach where he's just taking the lead, which is great, right? So therefore, there's more muscle. There's more muscle in implementing what has to be implemented the ground from a governance standpoint. But it's still up to the community or the local entrepreneurs to leverage on this. How do you now leverage on this movement, right? I really firmly believe, Nick, that whoever has the production, however small or big it is, will really be the saving grace of communities talaga, right? It's just that agriculture is just a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
right? You there it shouldn't be romanticized, to be honest. It's such a challenging industry, right? As much as we want to get things moving on innovation, it's really back to basic talaga, Nick, right? It's really, really back to basic. Um, building community, kami working on more water systems, and building micro energy systems for communities to thrive and start to develop things. No? So, yeah.
as a consumer, minsan napapaisip ka na lang na bakit tayo puro tayo import ng sibuyas, puro tayo import ng sugar, puro tayo import ng banana. Well, in fact, ang gaganda ng mga lupa dito sa Pilipinas to, to put a seed on it. Why? Well, it's a two-part question, pero one is, why the Philippines is so import dependent to other countries? At the same time, may pagkukulang ba yung mga government, local government, na hindi nakakapagbigay ng funds para sa mga farmers para magtanim ng sugarcane, banana, mango, that sort of thing?
Mm, yeah. Um, okay. It's more expensive to send a container van from Mindanao to Manila compared to Mindanao to Singapore or to Mindanao to Japan,
Why?
right? Uh, it's a very complex issue, but it's really on certain rulings on price points, and it's really a challenge, especially in logistics, no. Um, yes, that's usually the narrative that we see, especially when you're coming from the consumer side. But to get your harvest into an optimal harvest and marketable product is another thing, right? And by the time you harvest it also, is there someone willing to buy at that particular time? And with the farmer's mindset, kasi, Nick, you want your harvest to be sold in bulk, meaning yung buong, let's say, harvest lot. But pagdating naman sa consumer, there's also filtering, meaning kailangan siya i-size, sort, clean, distribute, repack. Ang dami niyan. That's why distribution is key also here. So it's multiple layers, Nick. It's multiple layers of issues surrounding the agricultural industry, but it's not impossible to solve. That's why I really believe in localized production, right? I really believe in increasing the local production talaga.
Pero it's not wrong to think na kaya natin mag-reach ng food security
Yeah,
na sa
kayang-kaya.
atin lang.
Kayang-kaya. And that's the only way to go now, to be honest.
Mhm.
Because what if Thailand or Vietnam limits their export of their rice, for example?
Exactly.
Editabla tayo, wala tayong sa atin, di ba? So again, it's a very tricky and complex issues, but I think with the advent of the development being done for the agricultural industry here in the Philippines, we're seeing a more, I would say, aggressive community doing these things, no?
May pagkukulang pa yung government in terms sa giving the local farmers the funding that they need. Kasi what from what I understand, yung land bank is nagpapautang para sa mga farmers. If I understand it correctly. Ngayon, bakit yung capabilities natin to produce certain products, let's say rice, it's very difficult to put in the market para yung price natin hindi mag-influx ng sobrang taas.
Hmm. Yeah. Again, how detailed do you want me to go, Nick?
Go.
Okay, access
Go
access to
detail as much as
access
possible.
to access to funding is there. Okay, there's always a program with Land Bank or Development Bank of the Philippines. It's always there. It's the compliance for it,
Can
right?
you discuss the compliance part?
The paperwork, the are you organized enough? Usually cooperatives need to have the right papers, follow up. And every time you start to comply these documents, it's a cost to comply, Kasi syempre, babiyahe ka eh,
Mhm.
to comply all of these things. And of course, if you're qualified pa, and then you have to make sure that when you ask for resources, you have a sure market and all of these things. So it's not that easy to be able to access these fundings unless it's an ayuda program, right? Even though if you give seeds to the community or farm, if they don't have the right tools and equipment to actually operate and plant, kulang din yun. So again, it's a never-ending cycle, Nick, of issues. Uh, I can describe it until 12 o'clock if you want, um, but it's just a complex web of challenges.
For the audience context lang, can you dissect it or briefly discuss it? Kasi interested lang talaga ako kasi habang nakikinig ako sa mga farmers na ang sinasabi, kulang sila sa funding kasi ang story na naririnig ko or nababasa ko, mag mag-uutang sila sa land bank. Then kapag, it's time for harvest na, ibebenta nila in low price. Kasi yun lang yung mga hinihingi ng mga, suppliers or mga buyers nila, eh.
Mm,
So pagkabenta nila dun sa, inahin nila, konti lang matitira sa nila. Bale, yung inutang nila is babalik lang, pero konti lang yung may babalik sa kanila or yung profit
mm. So
nila.
so
Mm.
what's your question?
So, can you briefly discuss that web na-mention mo? Kasi interested lang talaga ako sa part na yun.
Okay. Okay. Sige. Let me try to collect my thoughts for that. Market always wants best price or lowest price possible. Farms always want um, best price also, right? Again, like let's not romanticize agriculture. It's very hard,
Mhm.
right? Um, Different markets want different sizing, different quality controls, depending on what you're talking about. Agriculture is very wide. It can go from grains to vegetables to fruits, but in principle, they're all the same. People want quality stuff. Now, um, the middlemen make it provide services to serve communities, and they find markets. No, so again, it boils down also to relationships that the people who market these produce have. So you're not just talking about um, financial capital. You're also in agriculture. There's multiple types of capital. There's financial capital, of course. There's knowledge capital. There's human capital. There's social capital because you have to know where to sell it and how to sell it. There's, I would say, infrastructure capital. All right, all of these things have to come into play, right? And there, I mean, if kung pagtanim lang talaga, Nick, walang problema. Maraming magaling magtanim dyan. But the other day I was talking to someone, do can is it still optimal for farms to really sell, right? That's why for us, it's really localizing it. Benta lang sa local, right? Or maybe your nearest city, right? Kasi bibili rin naman. You just have to know where to sell it, how to sell it, right? The web and complexity of the issues that you're trying asking me to describe, um, it's very complex in a sense that compliance to meet even just the financial capital to start or to continually grow a business in farming takes time, right? So the resiliency of the perseverance to actually comply these things, dapat nandyan talaga. And you're lucky enough if you can get it on time kasi may season of planting din eh. So, uh, yeah, Nick, it's really, you're trying to make me describe a whole thesis in a few sentences. So,
True. True, I
yeah.
understand. Can you share a story, the struggles of iFarm tapos yung mga small wins niyo? Kasi I think it's very important to get or understand na the agribusiness is super hard. So, every small win is very important. Lalo na sa moral ng team, morals ng mga farmers, and syempre, magre-reflect yun sa market.
Okay. It's if I don't love what I'm doing, Nick, I'd have quit many years ago.
You mentioned that
Uh,
the first
yeah,
day we met.
yeah. And if you're gonna get into something and you don't have the perseverance for it, it's gonna be so challenging. That's why I say I tamed down and really decided to focus on what matters. Because you also don't have all the resources to burn. In fact, any startup is very limited in these resources. And the other challenge is also is how do you keep a team together, right? How do you keep the team your team's morale up, especially during the pandemic? You had to find a way to make everyone survive somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And if the leader quits, tabla, di ba?
Yes, sir.
So many times you have to bite the bullet. You have to absorb things, absorb the demand of the ecosystem that you're trying to build. That's why when people try to romanticize entrepreneurship, Nick, man, if you're employed, you're so lucky. If you
Sir.
if you're employed and just be grateful you have something coming in every quincenas, di ba? Um, just be in the position of gratefulness. But again, it's tough.
It's very tough.
It's tough. Um, but the fulfillment there and the small wins there, Nick, is when, of course, aside from a sale, is there's there's still a group that believes in the idea, right? Na, oy, pwede pala natin to gawin. But the camaraderie to make it happen, that's the challenge there, right? Um, as of any business, Nick, who bears the cost,
Mm-hmm.
right? Someone has to bear the cost, right? And usually it's the entrepreneur who takes the risk. People only see the profit, right? Down the line of the idea, but who puts in the work, right? Who puts in the work? Who puts in the daily grind, right? It's still the same message that I've shared to you many years, Nick. However, this time with experience and a bit of time in the industry, you know where to position your energies na. Again, you only have limited time per day, so put your energy in what matters most, right? Small wins, I think every time people say thank you to what you've done on behalf of, let's say, an activity or a sale or getting their produce sold, it's good. Um, the ecosystem is growing, especially here sa amin, where there's more processors, there's more, you can really, I would say, produce more, right? And sell more here. Mm, yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic, Nick. Honestly, really trying to be optimistic and keep positive, but it's really challenging. Um, yeah, yeah, that's where we are right now.
I'm so glad na na-mention mo na don't romanticize the agribusiness. I think kasi kapag sa mga movies, lalo na the theme is yung young entrepreneur na naging successful sa agriculture sa Pilipinas. People think na kapag na-reach nila tong certain certain goal is roll the credits na. Hindi nila ni-realize na okay, na-reach mo tong goal na to. So what's next? So I'm very happy na na-mention mo yun kasi 'Di ba lahat naman din ng mga nakilala mo parang gano'n yung mindset, parang sa umpisa parang ang ganda ng motivation, ang taas ng energy, pero when reality hits, it's really difficult for them to rebound lalo na kung hindi nila passion yung gusto nilang gawin.
Yeah, it's important to take a pause. It's really
Mhm.
important to rest also. More and more, Nick, I'm valuing rest and time with the people that matter most in your life. No. Um, yes, we can be passionate about an idea, but there's also wisdom in saying, oh, it's not working immediately. What can I do? Right. And right now, Nick, my it's very important in any business is to really study your cash flow talaga. Like what type of how especially in agriculture, it's all about pre-planning and program planting and program demand. How do you put all of that together?
Yup.
So yeah, man, it's sustaining the energy. Siyempre, if you're the entrepreneur, it's always giving,
Yup.
right? Or meaning ikaw yung source ng answer, sagot. If things don't go well, ikaw pa rin yung source, di ba? If things go well, ikaw yung source, di ba? But again, it's really just saying, okay, this is the situation. How are we gonna solve it? Right? This is the situation. How is it gonna be addressed? How do we get ideas and make it happen? Right? So all of these things. Um, yeah, man, it's there.
Can you help me debunk some myth about Mindanao? Kasi my parents from there and I'm in love with the place. Ngayon, every time na uuwi ako, sabi ng mga friends ko, "Ba't ka pupunta diyan? Eh, may giyera diyan." O kaya, "Di ka natatakot? Baka kitabi ka ng MPA." Now, for those who live there, especially you, Jairus, can you please help me debunk those bunch of myths?
Well, it's a reality. Like today, the news, no?
Mhm.
I mean, um, some shootouts and all that. But in the density in it's only because yan yung nababroadcast,
Mhm.
you know.
Exactly.
But Mindanao is its own country. It's a big, 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 big it's a big island, no? Yes, there are issues that come happen like that, extreme. It's but I think more than that, there's more good that happens than bad.
Exactly.
You know, I think only because people should explore more the countryside and really see how people live beyond the four corners of our room, beyond what we see in in um in social media or in the news. Um, so Mindanao is very safe, if you ask me. Again, there's very unique in situations. It's usually highly political when those things happen. Aside from that, it's just regular business here. There's a very big population growing here. Um, People are simpler to talk to. Mas madaling kausap. It's getting a bit more sophisticated in a sense na, there's malls na here.
Mhm.
Uh, People are more going back to the countryside and just living in a simpler life there, fresh air, um, more opportunities. That's why we need more entrepreneurs here so that more opportunities start to grow, right? Uh, but yeah, I think that's old school thinking na Nick. Wala na.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can say that if there's fear, then but there's more petty theft in the city than
Yeah.
generally here. So yeah, but of course I can't disregard that there are there are things that happen around, no, on the extreme side, and but those usually happen hundreds of kilometers away, so it's fine,
Yeah.
di ba?
Here
Mm,
in Bacoor, um, where I live, dati siguro bata pa ako nun, puro pa 'to palayan, yeah, puro palayan patong Bacoor. Um, right now, it's kind of depressing to think kasi yung mga anak na namana yung lupa, they rather sell the land than harvest mga palay, uh, gulay, that sort of thing.
mm,
Uh, I think the best question here is how can we generate that optimism na instead of ibenta yung land is panggamitan or gamitin as a farm or magtayo ng farm. Kasi as you mentioned earlier, doon na tayo papunta sa food security. No, every land na nabebenta na develop into malls, I think mas nag-short yung percentage natin to have that locally produced food security.
yeah, you again, you can romanticize it that way, Nick. It's fine, but if you were the owner of the land, what would you do?
Well,
If may nag-offer sa'yo na that's just the reality,
mhm.
no? Oh, Nick, sa lupa mo, tayuan natin ng commercial center. Would you say yes or no? You'd say naturally say yes kasi sometimes it's upfront cash already or joint venture minsan. So, owner ka na ngayon, 'di ba? So, it's just providing higher value. The challenge lang talaga here is palayo ng palayo ang source of food, right? It's going higher and higher, the mountain's getting more expensive. Uh, so your question is, Nick,
So the question is, how can we encourage those people na magtayo na lang or itayo na lang ng farm instead of ibenta yung land? Kasi I personally think, especially laki sa parents na galing sa province na once na may lupa ka, magandang gawing farm yan. Magandang gawing um, palayan, magandang gawing uh, any form, any vegetables na
mm,
pwedeng gawin. I think it's a matter of how can we help. I don't know if that's the right term, pero how can we help encourages the young generation to pursue agriculture here in the Philippines? Kasi nakakaano eh, parang nakakalungkot isipin na pakonti-konti nawawala yung mga lupa or
I
for
think
that
it's
purpose.
instead of maybe the change of narratives, how do we encourage people to get into the agribusiness, right? Not just agriculture, because agriculture is just if you want to be technical about it, it's usually planting and all that, but agribusiness, right? Um, in terms of telling people, personal prerogative yan, Nick. If the opportunity is there and you need it, take it, diba? But there will always be people who will compensate for 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 filling up the need and the gap, right? Again, it's very complex. It's a big issue to tackle. No one can do it alone. It's a community approach, no? Kami, we're just doing what we can in our little community here, hoping to do things much better and hoping to provide better services in the near future with the help of some developing parties, developing groups. Um, access to market who cities is very needed also, no? So I don't know, Nick. There's really a lot to talk about here. Your questioning is very, very good. That's why medyo na-challenge ako. I'm trying
Thank
to
you.
answer it. I'm trying to answer it in a way that's understandable, but it's really a very, very complex challenge, no? Particularly in this industry. That's why kami, sa daming kailangan ayusin, Nick, we're not fixing everything. We can just do what we can. Kaya kami nakafocus kami sa tubig, okay? At saka sa seeds as a company. So we're starting with that, and of course, applying the method of sold before harvest to the market. So again, better access to knowledge also in technologies and all that. That's what we're trying to bridge for the past year. So hopefully it's gonna take fruit this year already.
So before I let you go, um, can you give advice for young agri entrepreneur out there na struggling a certain issue but has the passion to do it or highly motivated to reach that goal? Do you have any advice?
I would say choose what you want to get into, right? If it's crops, then focus on crops, but be the best, right? I would say maximize your space or your resources that you have, and make sure there's a market of what you're gonna do. Hindi pwedeng tanim-tanim lang, no? I understand, Nick, it's a narrative in the generation now, but you really have to put the time and effort into it. You really have to put the time and work
Yeah.
on it, no? And then you learn from it and then you improve. So yeah,
Thank you so much, Jai.
yeah,
Saan
dude.
ka nila makikita?
Well, saan na nila makikita? Well, you can just follow me in my Instagram page, or just check out our social media pages. We're more public with our solar products, iFarms.solar, and iFarms.seeds. Okay. For the energy solutions that we're creating, it's no, it's peopleslight.mindanao. That's another story and another episode, siguro, Nick.
Sure.
We're creating micro energy systems for rural communities. It's quite mga innovation yan. So masaya yan. But yeah, aside from that, it's reach out to me in Facebook or Instagram, and if you want to talk, we can. We'll make
Thank you
time for
so
it.
much, Jai. I really
Thanks so much for
appreciate it,
the.
my guy.
Thank you, dude. Thank you so much.
So with that being said, Nick Barellano podcast is available on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify. And with that being said, peace out. Again, Jai, thank you so much, my guy.
Salamat, salamat.
Bye. Peace out.
They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that could make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous, but I don't give a fuck, I'ma keep chasing. I got all this potential that's deep inside of me, but they hate when you're successful cause they try to be. They sit there being judgmental because you're trying things, and they just want you to settle and do the right thing. So get a good job, don't slack off. Wake up every morning, make a good impression on your boss. Don't do anything that I wouldn't do, and when you're making money, make sure you don't spend it too soon. Fuck that, I'll do what I wanna do. I got a different path from everyone, and that includes you. Who are you to tell me how to live life? In these times it feels like nobody is right, yeah. So I'ma figure out what else we succeed, and then invest all of my time into that and proceed. I need whatever the hell could make me happy, and I don't think you have a clue what could that be. They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that can make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous, but I don't give a fuck, I'ma keep chasing. They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that can make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous, but I don't give a fuck, I'ma keep chasing. I think this life could be special if I get rid of the devils. They think that I am a rebel, I think they want me to settle. There's nobody on my level. They think that work is too stressful, I think that work is essential. The grind is all in your mental, and I don't think you understand what I'll go through just to be in control of my life soon. All the negativity, man, I'm immune. I don't really need a mask with all I've been through. I've been making changes for the ages. 5, 10-year plans are contagious. I attack that shit, I'm tenacious. And if you ain't, get the fuck out of my way then. Got got one life, I won't regret it. I will fight until I get it. I'll look back one day from heaven and say, damn, I learned some lessons. And say, damn, I had no questions. I had fun in every second, and the journey was a blessing, yeah. They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me